Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. And joining me is my guy, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Me personally, I'm doing well, but as we see in the comments already, got to open up with the news about Kyree Jackson. If you didn't know who that was, he's the corner from Oregon that we drafted in like the second or third round of every mock that we did.
Yeah.
Loved him as a prospect, of course. Sad to hear of his passing this morning. Never a good time to die, obviously, but when your life is really about to start, like his was,
Yeah.
is awful. So heart goes out to his family and all the other families of the other passengers.
Yeah, just terrible news. The police report came out, and it is suspected that one of the cars involved it did involve a drunk driver who essentially was trying to switch lanes and pushed Kyree and his car off the side of the road and killed Kyree and two other people in that car, including one of Kyree's high school best friends, former teammates. So just terrible news. I don't drink alcohol, but I always, try and encourage people to not drink and drive. Uber exists for a reason. And this is exactly the kind of things that taking an Uber could have avoided. So, just terrible, terrible news. I had a cousin who passed away who was a victim of a drunk driving incident a long time ago. And it's just stuff that is so avoidable, and it's just so unfortunate, so sad. Kyree had really turned his life around. If you don't know Kyree Jackson's story, he was working at a grocery store after junior college because he just did not think that he had anything left to give to football. And then he was kind of dismissed from the Alabama football team, goes to Oregon, turns his life around, has a great season, and gets drafted this year. Just terrible, terrible timing, and thoughts and prayers out to Kyree, his family, and the other victims and the families of the other victims as well. Just not a fun way to start the morning for sure.
No, not at all. So obviously no easy transition, but this is a Saturday Q&A. It is completely up to you guys what we talk about. I see one super chat in there. Feel free to fire in your questions and we'll answer them.
Yeah. So we'll touch on anything you guys want today. Usually on Saturdays get a little funny towards the end, but obviously if you want Chargers questions first, we'll start with Chargers questions. We are a few short weeks away from the start of training camp, so I would imagine that a lot of the questions are geared towards that. But anything is on the table today. And if you want us to talk about other content that we're consuming, feel free and ask that as well. Okay, let's get to our first super chat of the day. Appreciate Gary for kicking it off even before we started. He wants to know, will Deion Henley start by the end of the season? Obviously, we touched a bit on the linebacker room on Tuesday's show. Obviously, you have Denzel Perryman, Junior Colson, who cut his hair. Unfortunately,
I didn't know that.
He's cut now. And then Mr. Deion Henley, potentially maybe Troy Dye, Nick Neiman could get involved as well. But let's focus in on Dan Henley here, Tyler. What's kind of your expectation for playing time in his second season?
I think he's a core special teamer this year, and I'm not really sure he sees the defense all that much to start, at least this year. Obviously, he's not projected to be the starter at all. So if everyone's healthy, he's not starting. It's Perryman, it's Colson. I can't imagine Colson is off the field at all in favor of someone like Henley, I would imagine. So I really don't think we see a start from him outside of injuries. And I don't even know that if there were an injury that he would start over Troy Dye, who, as we're obviously operating off very limited information and snaps, not in games, not really in pads, not doing anything. But Troy Dye was LB3 when Colson was out for a bit. Troy Dye slotted in there as that LB2. So right now, Henley's not even LB3. So I don't even know that he'll see a start, even if somebody got hurt.
Yeah, and I think there's just a veteran presence with Troy Dye that this team could potentially trust. I think that's a big reason why Denzel Perryman's going to get started here. When I think of this linebacker room, I do think it ends up being pretty similar to what the Houston Texans did this past season with Denzel Perryman. So Denzel Perryman started out as the linebacker one. He was the play caller, and Christian Harris was the linebacker two. and then they had Blake Cashman, who was kind of their linebacker 3, and they were trying to bring along. And so it started out as like the 2-man rotation, and then Cashman's kind of rotated in on passing downs, and then Cashman started taking some snaps away, and eventually it did become kind of a 3-man rotation at linebacker. That is kind of like, I would say, the best case scenario for Deion Henley. So I don't think we necessarily ever see him start unless there's an injury to Denzel or Junior. But I do think that we see him play more by the end of the season. I think that is probably his ideal scenario for 2024. I know the fans and everybody listening is dying to see Deion Henley out on the field, and I get it. You know, the Chargers drafted him pretty highly. The bootleg football guys, gassed him up all offseason long that year. But I think, the transition from that 3-3-5 Washington State defense to Staley's defense was a very big transition from a playbook standpoint. And now he's getting another transition to a different defense. So I don't know anything for sure, but that transition at linebacker can really take young players a long time because you're just doing so many more things than you were in college. Like his college defense was essentially like play the run. He would drop straight back. There's the like thing again. Or he would cover the flats. Like the responsibilities were just like not there. And that's part of the reason why we think Junior Colson is just going to step in right away and be the linebacker 1, because he already knows all of those responsibilities. So I think we should have been and should be more patient with the learning curve that Deion Henley has had to go through jumping to the NFL.
Yeah, and maybe if they had kept the same regime and Staley and Telesco were here, maybe Henley is a starter this year. Yeah. Kendricks departs, Murray departs, or maybe Kendrick stays, and then Henley is the starter opposite him. Yeah. But new regime, new guys, and I mean, knowing that you said it all, but knowing the scheme, being Navarro Bowman's LB1, like that guy's on the field. That guy is going to start ahead of Henley. So, and it's obviously you want to see Henley get on the field and be a starter. I think that is definitely still a possibility. He's in a really nice spot where the pressure is not on him this year. You have to do that. He gets to learn again, get used to this system and everything. So I don't mind that he has a chance to wait. Usually you want to try to rush these guys on the field. Feels very different than like a JT Woods. Same round, yet you feel like Henley, you can afford a bit more time to allow him to really learn things and make his way into the NFL.
Yeah. But I do think he has a role on defense by the end of the season. Yes. Starting, probably not. I think that's Denzel and Junior for the bulk of the season. Okay, we'll get to the next one here from Alex. Alex says, with simulated pressures maybe being more used under Minter, who, if any, of the pass rushers could realistically drop into coverage? PTSD of Mac on Tyreek week 1 last year. So, it is a core piece of the Michigan defense. We saw the edge rushers at Michigan dropping to coverage several times, although it was never really a thing for Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson was always kind of going forward.
True.
So I think there will be some of it happening, but I don't think it's going to be as frequently as we saw at Michigan this past season, because he's going to, you're not paying Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, Bud Dupree, drafting Thule, investing in Thule's development to drop into coverage a ton. Obviously, they're going to be kind of the core pass rushers here, so I would expect that to be the bulk of it. That being said, Thule can drop into coverage. Like he is a guy who can play coverage, and I think we've seen a bit of that in games. We saw a bit of that in some of the spring videos. So Thule is easily the best of the 4 at dropping into coverage, and honestly, pretty easily.
Yeah, he's also the youngest, and not that he dropped into coverage a ton at USC, but he did play enough different roles. Like I feel like he'd be used to. I think he dropped back 40 times if I'm remembering correctly. Didn't Thule have a legit trigger downhill pass breakup on somebody last year, and it was on a penalized play, so it didn't count.
Yeah, I think I was against
Minnesota
Vikings. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was his god tier game where he just did everything in that game. I believe he can drop back, and frankly, he's the youngest and most young and spry, and
he's the most spry. Yep.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, it's probably with him. I'm curious what Joey's playing weight's going to be because last year he bulked up like crazy. Supposedly he put on a ton of weight. Is he dropping that weight? I don't know. Khalil Mack was a lighter guy, so if they're both on the field, I guess it's Khalil. But I don't know what Joey's playing weight's going to be.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be a core piece of the scheme by any means, though. I mean, like they're very clearly investing in the edge room. I think that's kind of going to be the plan is to focus on the pass rush.
Yeah.
I have a super sticker, of course, from Miss Andrea Schoon. Appreciate the Schoon family as always. Wedding anniversary was this week, correct? Or last week?
Yeah. So June 29th. So I guess the Sunday or Saturday, whatever it was, 33 years, I believe.
Very nice.
So
Very nice.
going strong. Feel free to ask my mom marriage questions and how to make it work for that long, because my wife and I are coming up on 1 year anniversary.
Hey.
I can't imagine 32 more years with another 32 in front of you, like awesome feat, truly.
Hey, that's later this month, isn't it?
Yeah, July 15th.
Ooh.
So yeah, about a week.
Next week. You guys doing anything fun for that?
Well, I think I got to sit at a computer and get training camp tickets, and then I'm gonna. Now my wife goes to school that day while I just sit around and unemployed for summer, basically. So, I will. We'll do something on the following weekend. We don't really do things like on the day. If it's on a Monday and we're working or something, we'll just plan it for Saturday.
Yeah. We kind of do the same thing. Brooke and I are hitting 7 this year, so
all right.
It's been kind of crazy that it's been 7 years already, but
yeah.
Okay, so I don't see any other super stickers, so or super chats. Obviously, if you guys have any, we always appreciate those, and those will ensure that those questions will get answered. But we'll touch on some of these other ones from the chat before we get going. Damage wants to know: do you think we will see more design runs for Herbert in Roman's offense?
On the one hand, I think yes. On the other hand, they might just be like, well, we got this offensive line for a reason. We'll just hand it back to the running backs that are a bit more disposable. I, at this point, wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh and everyone had a plan of going, dude, Herbert's gotten hurt the last 2 years in a row. And even his rookie year, he was banged up a couple of times. Like, I know he's talented, but let's get him through a season. So I think, I don't know about more design runs. I think we'll just see a few, but I don't expect too many. And I wouldn't get hyped up in all the training camp stuff, the stuff that they try out, because we saw plenty. I saw reverses to Isaiah Spiller and pitches to Mike Williams and all sorts of nasty stuff that we never saw again or ever in the regular season. So I don't buy that we're going to see more design runs.
Yeah, they were doing speed option runs and variants off of those speed options like 4 or 5 times in practice. And I think we saw it like once in the season. And then like Austin Eckler did it as a Wildcat quarterback. And that was it.
Yeah.
So there, training camp is the time where teams kind of like to experiment with some things, and they'll try and figure out what works best for this specific group of players. I think we'll see him run more just because he's going to be healthier. Like, I think that is part of it, but I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I think it's probably going to be like 1 or 2 design runs a game, nothing out of the extraordinary. And then he'll scramble from time to time. And that's pretty much going to be it.
Yeah, I agree. Is Alex Smith was a 49er for like 1 year, 2 years with Harbaugh?
It was technically 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how many times he ran.
1 year at full starting, and the second year he had like a bunch of concussions, and then that's when the Kaepernick thing happened, and then they went to the Super Bowl and all that.
So 2011, he ran 50 times. 2012, 30 times. Like you said, the number of snaps played. So we'll say 50 maybe.
Yeah.
Not Lamar numbers, not Tyrod Taylor numbers, but I could see maybe more like that.
They'll probably encourage him to keep a few of like the designer looks just to keep defenses honest a little bit more. But like Justin, I think has proven in a variety of ways that he is a very cautious football player. And if he's dealing with some kind of injury, he's not going to run. So if he's healthy, like I think we'll see him keep it a few times and maybe keep the defenses honest, but it's not his bag. And even people will always say like, oh, at Oregon he ran a lot. Well, they were doing RPOs every other play. Like there was always built-in reads for him to run. So that's just not how the NFL offenses operate. So I think it'll be a part of it, but not anything crazy. Stodakine wants to know, what group of our team do you think is the weakest?
I guess corner. At least safety is top heavy. It's
Yeah.
either corner or D tackle, I'd think.
Yeah.
If you want to say guard, I would kind of get it. Like interior offensive line, maybe, but I think it's corner because
Yeah.
I actually don't even know for sure who two of the three starters are.
If you want to isolate specifically guard and center, I would say center would be in that conversation.
Yeah.
Um, but I do trust Bradley Bozeman as a starter, relatively speaking. I think
Mm-hmm.
the cornerback room has a lot of question marks, and like we're rooting for these guys, but the slot position, it gives me anxiety already, and the season has not even come close to starting. So I think you probably have to say corner until we see somebody really emerge, and if Christian Fulton can stay healthy, there's just a lot of question marks there.
Yeah, I agree.
On that note, M. Woe wants to know if we think the Chargers end up trading for a defensive lineman. It's one of the weakest positions on the team. I think the Chargers are the perfect team to do
Yep.
a midseason trade this year. They have a ton of cap space next year, a lot of draft picks coming in. They could be, overachieving relative to like what the national media expects of them at the trade deadline, and it is a week back this year, which is great. And defensive tackle is right for the investment. The question for this specific position, I think, is tough to answer because teams generally are not trading like quality defensive linemen because they're so rare, so valuable in today's NFL. So I think it's pretty likely they do a midseason trade. Defensive line
Yeah.
is a bit tough for me to like nail down which guys can potentially be available. But we did our show, before our break, and it was like there's a bunch of corners they could trade for, a bunch of safeties, a receiver, maybe a tight end, maybe running backs. D line is tough. It's a tough position to really figure out who could be available at the deadline.
Who was the Osa? Was the Cowboys defensive lineman you recommended?
Yeah, Oso Odigizua from the Cowboys, but like that's probably a preseason thing. That's not a during the season thing because
Oh, okay.
he's like their only defensive lineman.
Yeah, they should trade for some of these guys. They should definitely trade for someone on defense. I'd be very happy with corner, what we just talked about, and we gave several options at corner. So yeah, I really think defense in general they should trade for at some point. Yeah, it's not a great 2025 free agent group.
No.
Well, we mentioned DJ Jones as well. I could see that. They need help though. They need help on defense, and I would be happy with an expiring contract or something of like something similar.
Yeah, the Ravens obviously have had a very strong history of signing players leading up to training camp or during training camp. So there is a possibility that we see them maybe kind of kick the tires a bit after they get their looks at people. I'm not opposed to bringing Nick Williams back, who played, I think, pretty well last year for the Chargers. But outside of that, it's tough right now. The quality defensive linemen don't exactly grow on trees. So, Linval Joseph is still trying to play. It's like that's the kind of group you're talking about in free agency right now. So, it's just expectations for finding a quality defensive lineman are tough right now.
Yeah. Just sticking with that real quick from Cameron, how much do we need to overachieve by to make a serious move at the trade deadline? Do you feel that they have to actually be a winning, very good team? Let's say, so trade deadline's after week 9. So the Chargers will play 8 games because they have the week, 5 bye or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you feel that they even have to be overachievers, or do you think they could also consider this a load up for next year kind of thing? Even if they know they're pretty good.
That's a good question. I think Joe Ortiz would have the foresight to be able to trade for somebody who's under contract. Like Marshawn Lattimore to me, I think is the perfect candidate for this exercise because he still is under contract through 2026. The Saints could be bad. The Chargers could just look at cornerback and say, hey, like we don't really have a way to find a high-end corner like that, so let's just get this done, and then we can be a little bit more flexible in draft next year. But I think if they are like firmly in the playoff picture, then that obviously makes it much more likely, especially with the Chargers' kind of tougher stretch happening after the trade deadline. So, if they are sitting at 6-2, 5-3, I think we could see them be aggressive for sure at the deadline.
6-2. Okay, let me look at that stretch again.
Chargers. But if they're like a 500 team, if they're 4-4, like they're not trading for somebody. Like I think they're just kind of going to continue to take the lumps. Like I think they have to have at least a winning record.
Okay, so they'd have to. Yeah, it's possible. So their first 8 games before the bye, before the deadline, Vegas, so Raiders, Panthers, Steelers, Chiefs, at Denver, Cardinals, Saints, and Browns. So heck, if you have a decent record and then you go to Cleveland and beat the Browns, and then you're approaching the trade deadline, yeah, because then you beat a pretty good team, I think, in the Browns at least. So you have a bit of momentum there. So if you're 5-3, 6-2 after beating the Browns on the road, yeah, I wouldn't mind that. You get Tennessee the next week, and then it's Cincinnati, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, tough stretch. So yeah, go for it. And if you get them early and you started with a decent record, you pointed out the very end of the season, those final 4 games, they're not gimmies, but they're much easier to close out the season. So
yeah,
at that point, if you have 5 or 6 wins, you're feeling good about the end of the year, and then just steal a couple along the way. It's piece of cake, easy.
Yeah, super easy. This is just the NFL, but that Titans game I think is perfect for them because it gives whoever they potentially trade for a week against a not super difficult opponent. Again, I say this now, but the Titans could potentially turn
beat us last year.
I don't know, beat us last year, but theoretically the Titans are a relatively easier opponent. So I think it would give that player a nice week under their belt to get the playbook, get the scheme, get his sea legs under him a bit before you have that super difficult stretch against the AFC North. So you have to have a winning record by the deadline, in my opinion. If they're really overachieving and they're 6-2, then I think this is a team that definitely can go out and get a trade target. I just don't know how likely a 6-2 start is.
Yeah, as Cameron says, if we win in Denver, just go all in. At that point, like if they pull off the at Denver win and it's a legit win, hey, go all in.
Yeah. Eddie pointed out that the Locked On Chargers guy is Daniel, and David did also agree with defensive line. I think it's the right call. Shout out to the Locked On guys. I don't know how they continue to do content the way that they do. It just is crazy to me. Obviously Daniel's a recent dad and he's pumping out episodes every single day. So, I think they're doing 3 episodes a week now, but still crazy to me.
Yeah. And David's got some workout health updates, posted a couple of times. He's working on biceps growing and dropping weight over whatever. Good for you, man.
Yeah. 100%. On that note, trade note, Tylen Sago, what do you think of an Alec Pierce trade? Alec Pierce, the former Cincinnati Bearcats receiver, current Indianapolis Colts wide receiver. I think receiver is the wrong place to focus on a trade acquisition, personally. If you're doing offense, I think that's maybe a running back. Alex's guy, Khalil Herbert, is potentially available from trade. That could be a preseason thing. Receiver, I think you just want to see what this group is before you acquire anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, you have obviously McConkey. You want to see Palmer. You want to get Palmer the snaps anyway. So if you move on from him, decent comp pick. Got to see what you have in Quinton. Got to see what you have in DJ Chark and Rice and Johnson. So I don't know. I'm not saying that Cornelius Johnson is better than Alec Pierce. Of course, you take Pierce, but like you said, you want to see what they have.
Yeah, and I think Alec Pierce and his role is the exact same role that I would envision for Brendan Rice, DJ Chark. It's just, that's a tough one for me to figure out. Yeah. Although I do like Alec Pierce, and I would also be surprised if the Colts traded him because they just drafted him and they have Anthony Richardson trying to make a jump. So there was one that you had up earlier.
Oh, just because we're all talking about trade targets. You'd mentioned Marshawn Lattimore. We had talked about Greg Newsome. Those guys. I think those were the 2 corners we mentioned.
Yeah.
Just those 2? Yeah.
Yeah. Newsome, I think I would love that. He's obviously younger, but that's somebody you've got to like pay and figure out the contract. So that one's a little bit more of a tougher sell, I would think, for the Chargers, as opposed to somebody whose contract is already set in stone. You know, like we'll see. Soda came back here. Vegas odds on Harbaugh winning Coach of the Year are plus 900. How many games will it take for the Chargers to make this bet happen?
We talked about this, and I got to look at the Coach of the Year odds again.
I think
because I felt like there was an opportunity. It's not that Harbaugh wouldn't get more wins. It's that there are other teams who legitimately could just flip their teams.
Right.
I don't know how much credit Harbaugh would say. Wow. Okay. Harbaugh depends where you go. Looks like second best odds.
Really?
What am I on? Vegas Insider. So it's LaFleur. They have Harbaugh plus 1,000, and then with Raheem Morris plus 1,000. Harbaugh would be a popular vote, I would think. But anyway, what would they have to do? They would have to, I don't know. I mean, beating the Chiefs in the division guarantees it at that point, I think. But
yeah,
I don't see that happening. So you have to get like 12 wins and be a very strong team and beat probably two of the better teams on your schedule. Like you got to beat the Chiefs once, probably either the Ravens or the Bengals. So it's tricky.
Yeah, LD Bruin pointing out Brian Table didn't win that many games when he won it. Generally speaking, you got
Daniel Jones as a quarterback, though. All right, when Daniel Jones is your quarterback, you win one game.
I think the Giants' win total that season heading into the year was like 5.5. So them making the playoffs was like a massive overachievement.
Oh yeah,
the Chargers, they to me would like you have to win the division for him to win Coach of the Year like outright. I would say 11 wins also would give you that. Like 11 wins as a wild card team would get you that. But if they're like making the playoffs as a 7 seed, as a 9 and 8 team, like I don't think that gets the job done. I think traditionally you've got to be a division winner. You've got to be a team that like really overachieves. You've got to, turn your season around. Like D'Amico Ryans this past season. So it's those kind of things that the voters are looking for. I don't think the Chargers winning one more game than their win total qualifies as like, hey, let's give that coach.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, because if their win total right now is set at 8.5, like 10 isn't really like, wow, you guys really overachieved,
right?
And part of that is just baking Harbaugh into it. Like the Chargers are 8.5, a lot because of Jim Harbaugh. If it was a different new head coach, it's not the same. So that's already baked into the expectation is already not high, but higher than usual.
Yeah, it's a tough exercise, right? But if you copy paste this exact roster with the Brandon Staley coaching staff, I think the Vegas win total would be like 6.5. Like I think the Harbaugh effect is baked into the win total, in my opinion. So I think it's tough for him. Like I know he has the second best odds, but it's tough for me to really say, like Harbaugh winning Coach of the Year. Now, you mentioned Joe Ortiz as executive of the year. I actually do think that is more likely than Jim Harbaugh winning Coach of the Year. Some of that is going to be how the Chargers like frame things. But, I was listening to the Ringer podcast and they were trying to like bucket coaches into specific tiers. And there still are some people who think that Jim Harbaugh has all of the say in terms of the roster. But if Joe Ortiz, if the Chargers draft picks hit like we think they're going to hit, if Christian Fulton can play good ball, Puna Ford can play good ball, Hayden Hurst has a resurgence, then Joe Ortiz is going to say, or not like say outright, but like it's going to be an easier thing for me to sell personally that Joe Ortiz is the executive of the year than the coach of the year, because they're not winning the division. Like you can be executive of the year and not win the division, but it's really tough to be coach of the year and not win the division.
Yeah. Also, I went through the. You just loved when I read through the previous executive of the year winners, and well, you don't have to do as much.
You don't have to do as much. It's much easier. It's like hit your draft class, have some key free agents play well, and like that's pretty much it. And I think that's in the realm of possibility for the Chargers. Harbaugh winning Coach of the Year, I think, requires a division win or at least 11 wins and like a 5 seed.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. There's so many good coaches. Like, it's just, Andy Reid could probably win coach of the year every single year if we're being honest, but he hasn't yet. Okay. There's one earlier that I wanted to say. Oh, from Frank. Appreciate Frank Blakely. Always in the Discord. Always been a long-time supporter of the show. He said, what player on the roster from last year will have the largest improvement, and what new player will have the biggest impact there?
Ooh, biggest improvement. So okay, if we're not just including like, year 2 player this year, this is my last year I get to do it, but I'm saying Zion Johnson. I'm hanging in there, guys. I publicly jumped up and down, at least like one ear and shoulder of me was jumping up and down. And so I'll go with Zion Johnson for largest improvement, which makes sense given the coaching staff. Which new player will have the biggest impact? I don't know if this is even the right answer, but I need to start pushing the whole Poona Ford thing because nobody's talking about him except probably Steven, I feel like, sometimes when I chime in. And I don't think people understand that if he doesn't work or if he gets hurt, like that defense is in a bit of a pickle, if you will. So him and Bozeman will have the biggest impact because without them, I don't know what the interior of each of those units is going to be like.
Yeah, offensive line wise, I think that's a good call. Brandon Thorne was on the Athletic Football Show this week, and he was asked by Robert Mays which teams he believes have the best offensive line infrastructure. And the Chargers were the second team that he mentioned. Like, Brandon Thorne really believes in this regime's ability to maximize the offensive line. So I think that you could argue for Zion. You could argue for Trey. I think I'm expecting a huge season from Rashawn. Like, all of those guys, I think, could be mentioned in that regard. Non-offensive line edition, I think Thule obviously would have had a case here if the Chargers had not signed Bud and one of Joey or Khalil had left. So that's a bit tougher for me to sell here. I think Alohi could have an argument here too. I mean, Alohi could be an answer for a lot of different questions, but this is a regime he has some familiarity with. I think he's going to play in the box more often. I think Alohi could be my answer here too.
Who's, just out of curiosity, because we always think of like who's the best safety because we're always talking about Derwin, but who's like that best second safety in a defense? I'm trying to think of like who are those 1-2s that have a great,
the Ravens.
Yeah.
Let's look.
I guess depends on who's playing. Sometimes the Lions. Yeah, I'm trying to get a feel for like impact of second safety, but very good play. So Ravens, obviously.
The Patriots, I would say, with Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. That's a pretty good duo.
Is Peppers back?
Yeah, Peppers is back, and he was awesome last year for them.
Of course.
The Steelers have Mika Fitzpatrick and Deshaun Elliott. That's a pretty good duo.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs, depending on how you feel about Brian Cook, I guess. I don't know. The Eagles with Reed Blankenship and CJ Gardner-Johnson probably have a good standing there. The Bears have Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker. That could be a choice. The Vikings have Cameron Bynum and Harrison Smith.
I remember the Cam Bynum train.
Yeah. The Buccaneers have Antoine Winfield and Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah.
The 49ers have Talanoa Hufanga, and they drafted your guy Malik Mustafa.
Dang it.
But Mustafa's obviously a rookie. So, yeah, I think the Chargers have a good case for best safety duo in the league.
That's pretty good expectations too, or pretty lofty expectations.
Yeah. I would say Ravens would be the top for me.
Yeah.
But I think after that, the Chargers are in that conversation with second best with the Patriots, maybe the Steelers, depending on how you feel about Deshaun Elliott, Eagles. So not a ton of standout safety duos heading into the season, but the Ravens, I think, are clear cut the best answer there.
Mm-hmm.
One new player will have the biggest impact. I think Bozeman's a good choice. If Fulton hits and he can play at his peak, I think that's the answer, but that's an if. Like, that's a big question mark. So I'm going to say Will Dissly here. I think Will Dissly solves so many of the Chargers' problems for the past 3 years that I think he would be my choice for the second question.
Yeah, you definitely might see the most significant change from previous starter at his spot to new player with Dissly. So yeah, Trey McKitty, respect, but Trey McKitty to Will Dissly is like significant. I'll say that.
And they did sign Nick Van Nett, which was like fine, but Will Dissly's like a legit blocker. Like it's crazy.
Last year was fun when it was like week 13. They elevated Nick Van Nett with 1% chance to make the playoffs. We were like, yeah, baby.
I was so excited. I wanted them to get Nick Van Nett last year just because that's where we were at with the tight end position, and then they did it. And then he was not very good. It was sad. Next question here. Tamser All Norm says that he predicted the Bolts would go offense mostly in this year's draft. For next year, he thinks they go defense. Which position will be first? Defensive tackle, corner, second, third round, maybe go center. Obviously, very early for next year's draft talk, but there's 2025 mock drafts happening and things like that. And people are still predicting the Chargers take a wide receiver, which I think is crazy. But yeah, I do agree. I think defense gets addressed in a big way next offseason.
Yeah, I agree. So who is under contract on defensive line next year? A Boygby?
Otito. Matlock.
Matlock. Okay. Cool.
Fox is a free agent.
Yeah.
Obviously Puna's on a 1-year deal.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
So
Tito, Eboigbe, Matlock. That's it, and then the undrafted free agents.
Yeah, so both starting outside corners are not under contract next year, and both of the quote unquote starting defensive linemen are not under contract. So yeah, I think defense is a must. I'd be stunned if they went offense unless they spent a ton of money on defense in free agency, which is possible. Telesco and Staley kind of did that in 2022. It didn't do anything, but they at least spent the money.
They got Khalil Mack out of it, okay?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They had to go get somebody else's player.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, no. I expect the defense to get the bulk of the resources because the offense has most of the core is intact. Like they'll need to go out and get a receiving tight end unless they just bring back Hayden Hurst. They'll need a third running back. They'll need potentially a starting right guard, depending on what happens with Trey, what happens with Jamari. But outside of that, like the receiver room is probably the same receiver room next year minus DJ Chark. Maybe bringing a different veteran outside of Chark.
Yeah.
You have the quarterback, obviously. The offensive line is probably not changing that much unless Zion is just like bad again.
Yeah, I think Zion, unless he's awful and worse somehow this year, he's your starter next year at some spot because you can't get a left guard and a center and a right guard,
right?
Unless Trey hits, so which is possible.
Yeah.
So I think just Zion is your starter and plays out that contract.
I would say the offense has many more veterans who are on 1-year deals who would be likely re-signed next year than the defense does.
Yeah.
Because I think it's much easier for me to project what Bozeman looks like, what Hurst could look like, what Trey could look like. Maybe J.K. Dobbins has a healthy season and they bring him back. Like defensively, it's just kind of like it's tough for me to see Fulton back next year. It's tough for me to see Puna back. Perryman's probably not back. It's defense is going to take a lot of resources next year for sure.
Yeah.
Even if they spend big on defense in free agency, I think they still need to focus on the draft early on defense because we talked about this earlier. Thule is your only young player on a rookie contract and probably junior that you would identify as like long-term building blocks. The offense has a bunch of guys So defense needs some love in the draft, I think, as well, for them to, maintain longevity here. Next year they'll have, Joey's under contract, Dupree's under contract, Thule's under contract, but they might cut Joey. So there's potentially a world where you need that second edge rusher, defensive tackle, corner, all big needs. So even if they do spend big on free agency on defense, I want them to focus on the draft early on defense, because there's no long-term pillars there besides Thule and Junior right now.
Yeah, I agree. Do they have any new picks next year, like their picks from trades, or no?
No, but they'll get the compensatory picks from Kenneth Murray, which is still kind of crazy. And Michael Davis, I think, was the other one.
Yeah, I'll check that right now.
I can't remember where that exactly ended up, but I know they got one for Kenneth Murray, which is
so technically it changes based on so they get a projected to get a 5th for Kenneth Murray, a 6th for Gerald Everett, a 6th for Austin Eckler.
Okay.
So a 5th and 2 6ths for now, and I think that's it.
And then they have their own 7. So right now they're slated to have 10 picks next year, which is great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, an extra 5th and 2 6ths. What running back will Alex predict?
Running back and day 3 tight end. That's our draft niche for this show, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, next draft should be fun. Kevin said fire till let's go again.
No comment. Oh, there we go. Wife doesn't like the idea of Justine Herbert as a baby girl name idea. R.I.P.
That's a tough sell. But I appreciate make this transition for coming up with it. And I don't know if you said this, but congratulations. I don't know if that was expressed.
Oh, that's right.
But congrats if she is pregnant. Congratulations.
Yeah, Justine Herbert is tough. Can you settle with like Justine? And then if she's born on like the 10th, you sneak the number 10 in there. No, you can't actually do that.
No.
Well, I guess you could, but you could induce. But anyway, yeah, Justine Herbert, whatever your last name is, transition.
Yeah, just wait for the boy, and then the boy can be named Justin. That's an easier one.
Yeah,
there's not many. Girls. I can't think of any like Chargers player where like the girl version of their name would make sense.
I don't know. I'm scrambling now. Joe Alt. No. Rashawn.
Rashawn's a tough one. Rashani? I don't know.
Rashanya? Zion? No. Zendaya? No. I don't know what Zion's girl name would be. Bradley.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, just name your daughter after Bradley Bozeman.
Gus.
Brumhilda. Brumhilda Brosman transition.
Yeah, I think you just gotta wait to have a boy. If you're done having kids, that's tough. I think.
Yeah, LaDania, I hear down here.
LaDania.
4th of July gender reveal. That's awesome.
Very cool.
Zena Johnson. There you go.
Yeah. Mighty says that he wants Colston Loveland for tight end next year. Ring the bell now. I love Colston Loveland. Michigan has like 4 guys I think could be in the top 20 next year. Colston, you have Mason Graham, the defensive tackle, who I would love. There's Will Johnson, the cornerback. Again, Will Johnson probably goes much higher than the Chargers pick. And then they have, I want to say like one of their safeties is really good too. So, yeah, man, Michigan, they didn't have a ton of early round draft picks this year. Next year, they're going to have a bunch. So obviously that's pretty easy to connect the dots for the Chargers.
Yeah, nice. I, at this point, would be disappointed with the tight end in round 1, unless Minter has his defense playing out of their minds this year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who they have.
Yeah. On that note, Enemy wants to know where you see us drafting next year, worst and best case scenario. I mean, best case scenario is number 32. But realistically, I see the Chargers picking in like the 16 to 22, 23 range-ish. Like, depending on how you feel about them being a wild card team, I think that's kind of where they end up at.
All right, so who are the teams that absolutely suck that they play? Carolina, there's a 1-win. I don't know, maybe Tennessee, New England, one Vegas thing, Atlanta, and $180 million. I don't know, 7 wins. What does that get you? Outside the top 10 as a worst case scenario. Best case, it's tough because you could have them only be a 7th seed, but then they ascend and move through the postseason because Herbert is stupid and goes off. And so I don't know. I don't see them getting out of the divisional round, but I'd love to.
Yeah. Like best case for me for the Chargers season is they are the 5 seed. They beat whichever AFC South team is the 4 seed, and then they're probably at Arrowhead in the divisional round. And then you lose, unfortunately.
Oh, the AFC South, you got to play the Texans. I don't know. Oh no, no, they won't be number 4.
I guess that could be AFC East. Bills could be potentially taking a step back this year. Maybe the 4 seed is the Bills.
Yeah. Toxic Dolphins Chargers postseason. That'll be something.
I still think the Bills should be the favorite in that division, personally. Even without Diggs. It's just I don't trust the other teams at all.
No. I don't know. I have to kind of root for the Jets, like 1% because of Arjun. But that's about it.
Yeah. I hope Arjun and the analytics department do great. And that's it.
Yeah. The game plan prepping is going to be so good.
Yeah. Jorge wants to know if they sweep Denver. I will never, ever, ever say they sweep Denver until I see them actually win at Denver more consistently. It's just they couldn't beat freaking Drew Lock at Denver. Like it's a cursed place for this franchise until I see otherwise.
They couldn't even beat Drew Lock when he was the second quarterback on the field for them that day.
Yep.
Yep. We were all, Arjun and Blobfish and I were all laughing at how pissed you were at Senio Kelemete for like the rest of your life because of that game.
He who shall not be named.
It's such like an unnecessarily random thing.
Dude, it was like literally the only reason the Chargers lost that game was because they did not have a backup left guard that was worth anything.
Yeah, that was fun.
If Matt Filer plays that game, the Chargers win that game. Like, I'm convinced.
Yeah. And then they tried like a weird running back rotation. So they threw the ball to like Darius Bradwell or whoever it was.
Yeah.
And he dropped it. Yeah, that was definitely something.
That was fun. That was a fun game. All right. I think this is the time of the show where we maybe get some weird questions in here, food-wise.
Yeah, I'm gonna let my dog out. Send in the weird questions.
Yeah. Okay. Send in the weird questions while Tyler's putting his dog out, I guess. I see Alex's question in the chat already. We'll get to that in a minute once Tyler gets back. Mimsy asking about training camp. Yes, we are planning on going to training camp. The 3 of us, including Alex Insdorf, will be together the first padded practice, which is Monday, July 30th, I think is the date. Alex and I will be together at Back Together Saturday. And then Tyler's kind of going sporadically, but the 3 of us will all be together for the first time ever. I have never met Alex Insdorf in person before. So we'll meet at padded practice the first day. Anybody going to see the Bolt next weekend, put all the pictures online, take the videos, hope to see a bunch of stuff from that. Looks amazing, and I can't wait to get down there for training camp. All right,
I won't be there, unfortunately, but
yeah. Alex kicking us off with the weird questions. How would Harbaugh answer one tank versus 1 million babies?
Oh, there's an awful conservative answer to this book I'm not going to get into. So you know what? You take this one.
I think he would not answer the question. I think he would dodge this question by talking about his beliefs about saving babies. So I don't know. I can't see.
Alex, I'll text you my answer
like this. Yeah. Sogadine said, "You sick, Alex." That's a good one. That's a good one. Mighty wants to know who we think eats the most hot dogs in one sitting for the Chargers. Like hot dog eating contest, who wins it? You know, people's first instinct here is always the bigger guys, but the hot dog champions are always like the little guys. Like Joey Chestnut is fit. So I don't know.
I mean, Herbert's pretty competitive. I don't know.
I'll say like Gus Edwards. Somebody who has like a bigger frame.
Okay.
But not like too big.
Maybe Poona Ford.
Maybe Poona Ford. Which it's so funny looking at the Chargers roster because all the other defensive linemen are like 6'4", 6'5", and Poona Ford's 5'11".
Yeah.
People are saying that Alex needs to try the authentic Mexican food.
What, in California?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Jackson wants to know who wins an Oklahoma drill between the Harbaugh brothers. I'll say John. John was a special teams player. He knows how to grind a bit more. I think Jim would talk a lot and then lose, unfortunately.
Does Jim Harbaugh have an RAS? Can we look at
No, I don't think RAS goes back that far, does it? From the Jim Harbaugh was drafted in like the 80s.
I don't know.
Frank said on the question, it's a great day to have a great day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh yeah, Cameron Dicker did say he loves hot dogs. That's a good shout out there. ASJ plus 12,000 hot dog contest champion. Yeah, Jim's bigger. I think that plays to John's advantage, though. I think John is, he's got the lower center of gravity. So I'm going with John, unfortunately. And Jim, yes, would be salty AF. Yes.
Alex Leatherwood winning the hot dog eating contest. I don't know why that's so funny to me. Ooh, okay. Oh, over under on Harbaugh having a heated handshake after a game at some point this season.
He hasn't had one of these since he was with the 49ers, though.
Who was it with?
The Jim Schwartz. Oh, wait, they do play Jim Schwartz this year. Ooh, I need to recreate that, actually. That's a good call out. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else he has a strong history with.
Was there a multiple games thing with Schwartz there, or was it just the one specific game?
I think it was the one specific game, and then people asked him about it the next season. They asked Schwartz about it, but they never played each other again after that.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete Carroll retired, so there's no Pete Carroll stuff.
Yeah, I think he needs a few years to hate somebody. I don't know.
I mean, he probably doesn't shake the defensive coordinator's hands also, but I think if there was a coach to have a handshake issue with Harbaugh, I think it probably would be Sean Payton.
Actually, yeah, that I could see that.
Gabriel says the same thing.
Yeah.
Because Sean wanted the Chargers job. The Broncos are probably going to be bad this year. If Jim runs the score up, maybe he gets a little heated at midfield. I don't know.
Did Sean Payton blow up last year after the Dolphins put up 71?
He blew up at his own team.
Well, fair.
Yeah, as Jorge points out, he is kind of that dude. So
yeah.
Other than that, I don't know. Jim's calmed down a lot at Michigan. He hasn't had any issues with other coaches that I know of. Yeah, Antonio Pierce, division rival, certainly could play a fact there, but If Mike Vrabel were coaching the Titans, that could be an issue.
Why?
Just because Vrabel is like that kind of president.
Oh, wait, isn't Vrabel also on the Browns with Jim Schwartz?
Yeah, but he's like an analyst. Like
yeah.
I think he's going to be up in the booth and stuff like that.
Big Browns game, man.
Yeah.
Heated arguments, trade deadline.
Browns defense is nasty. That defense is so good.
Yeah, what thing did they do that we hated? They did Michael Hall and
Michael Hall, and then I can't remember who else they drafted, but yeah, that pass rush is nasty.
Yeah, Michael Hall. Oh, Zach Zinter. Forgot they did that. Jamari Thrash. Who was it? And they did Jawan Briggs. I thought there was another player that we were like, oh god, I can't believe they did that. Never mind.
I think it was just Hall.
Michael Hall.
Yeah.
In the round 2, where he should have gone this whole time. Yeah. I can't wait to be right about that pick though. So good for us.
Yeah, that's great for Priors. That's probably the best Priors pick possible of that weekend.
That and Penn State center to the Chiefs.
Yeah. But I don't know if he's going to play because Creed Humphrey.
Yeah. No, Chiefs fans hate him because he can't snap, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
They also hate Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And I think Patrick Mahomes. And
no, Patrick's safe, but they're already starting to call Kelsey washed. So
jeez.
I guess Chiefs fans are the new Cowboys fans.
God. Well, that's what happens when you've only been a fan for 4 years.
Yeah. All right. 3 minutes left here. Any final questions? Drop them in the chat. Gaber, road trip in an RV or fly first class across the country? First class, easily.
Road trip in an RV or fly first class across the country. Road trip, RV. Do it for Harbaugh, do it for Greg Roman, and also first class is exponentially more. Now, do you have an RV or are you about to go get one? Or are you going to rent one or whatever?
I assume that you have the resources necessary either way to make this decision.
Well, good for you.
Oh, no. Which Charger is least likely to return the shopping cart? Oh, man.
Quentin.
No, he's a military guy. His parents are military folks.
I said what I said.
Okay. All right.
Least likely to return the shopping cart. Okay, if it's not Quentin, it's no. We have Chargers have so many high character guys.
Yeah. Bud Dupree. I don't know. Because he's been in the league forever. Like he's like somebody else can do this. I don't know.
That's so funny.
The cornerbacks. The cornerbacks for sure. Like 100% are not. They are not taking the shopping cart back.
I feel like Derwin as a defensive back, he'd do it. He'll do it because he's gonna push his kid on the cart and like they're like you used to run on the cart and then jump on the cart. Yeah, he'll do that.
Yeah, this is the cornerbacks are natural. Like it's a position group that is just naturally more selfish. So that was my thought process. Man, Bosa, a lot of comments for Bosa. Joey is not doing the shopping. First of all, he's too busy gaming.
That's kind of interesting. We haven't really discussed this from, I think, Tylen. What first round pick this past draft upset you? Mine was the 49ers picking Ricky Pearsall.
That's a good one. I loved Pearsall.
It depends. Like upset me usually is great player to team I hate. So let me look at the. I'm more worried about Bowers on the Raiders than I think I let on. That one really worries me.
Yeah.
They're a little worried about Neighbors going after the Chargers selection. Yeah, you know how that is.
Yeah. Tyler Guyton to the Cowboys. I am not a fan of just because I didn't like him very much, and they're probably going to turn that guy into like an awesome left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's the worst for priors of the first round for me. Of the first round. So that I would say that one, but there weren't a ton that I like outright hated.
No.
I know a lot of people were mad about Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs or Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs, but I wasn't like a huge fan of his. So, and they don't have a super strong wide receiver development history going on either.
No. Yeah, I think for the first round, it was mostly just, I'm so happy for those players to go to those great spots.
Yeah.
Like Byron Murphy to the Seahawks with McDonald in that room sounds fun. Terrion Arnold to the Lions is extremely fun. Jordan Morgan to the Packers, great history there of offensive line development. Yeah. So Nate Wiggins to Baltimore will be interesting.
Yeah. No, like the ones that I was the most mad at were definitely Bowers to the Raiders and Guyton to the Cowboys.
Yeah. A little worried about Leggett to the Panthers because I don't want him to not have a career.
Yeah. That's a tough spot for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of good fits here that I liked. You know, Darius Robinson to the Cardinals, I really liked. Quinyon Mitchell to the Eagles was good. Troy Fautanu to the Steelers was good. Good fit. Jared Verse with the Rams for that player. I'm not crazy about the Talise Fuanga fit with the Saints, but
yeah, especially flipping him.
You know, J.C. Latham to the Titans, perfect fit for him.
Yeah,
with Bill Callahan.
Yeah,
there's a lot of, you know, we study the players and we like these players a lot. And hope they succeed, but some good spots this year.
Mighty's right. At first, for everyone, it was all to the Chargers. If we're being honest, yes, half the fan base was like, "I can't believe they took the offensive lineman
that they said they were going to take all along."
And then, 2 weeks later, I love the comments after watching all. You know, I think he's going to be good. It's like, all right, I don't know what we're doing pre-draft.
I don't know if you watched the Hard Knocks for the Giants, but it sucked. It seemed so forced and unnatural. But I am curious to see how like the Malik Neighbors thing pans out on Hard Knocks, so I'll probably keep watching. But yeah, there was like the conversations just did not seem natural at all, and I just was not crazy about it. So hopefully it gets better.
Just like everyone being awkwardly mic'd up, and so they have to play up there.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So they brought in Shane Bowen from the Titans, the defensive coordinator, and they like the finish of the episode was like Shane Bowen was supposed to like talk to them about the scheme, about like what kind of players they were looking for, and then they spent like 5 minutes talking about Chris Jones and like what he could do in that defense, and I'm like, what is this? Why are you even talking about Chris Jones? There's no chance he was ever a free agent. Like it was just like, you know, they talked about Zach Moss for 5 minutes, which I thought was cool because I like Zach, but it's like there's no relevance here. They didn't sign him. They didn't have a chance at him, anything like that. So it was weird. I felt like a lot of it was just like big nothing burgers. So hopefully it gets better.
Yeah, we'll see about Malik Neighbors. It's a tough one. If they don't get a quarterback, that's just kind of me. Hard Knocks version of guilty as charged.
Well, I can't. Neither of us can do that because we work with kids. We'd have to have so many people sign like so many different forms to be able to allow them on camera.
Yeah,
unfortunately, not a thing.
We'll just like start some drama.
Yeah,
like shove each other and fight each other in the parking lot.
Yeah, too funny. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for us today. Appreciate all the questions. It was good to be back on a Saturday Q&A. We'll do these again sometime soon. We'll keep you posted. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
No, that was nice. I appreciate you guys sending in questions, whether they were football related or babies versus tank related. All questions are accepted and lovely. So thanks for that. Nice to be here on a Saturday with you guys driving the whole show.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your weekend. If you're in the Central Valley of California like me, hopefully you stay cool because it's like 115 degrees today. Or if you're in Arizona or Vegas or wherever, hopefully you stay cool. Have a good weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday for our normal schedule, or back to our 3-day Monday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule. So it should be a good week. And then, full steam ahead towards training camp. Appreciate you guys as always. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. All that good stuff does help continue to grow the show. We'll see you on Monday. As always, bolt up.